I transmigrate into a melodramatic angst novel. My CEO wife, Victoria Gibson, hangs me up and beats me brutally to force me to agree to a divorce. But when I see the $2 billion breakup fee, my eyes light up again and again. With both my hands injured, I quickly grab a pen with my foot and sign the divorce agreement. I say with a grin, "Thanks for the money. I wish you two a long and happy marriage. May you have many children." Victoria Gibson cracked the small whip soaked in iodine across my back. Her voice was cold as she asked, "Tyrell Griffin, I'm asking you one last time. Are you signing the divorce papers or not?" The sharp sting of pain reminded me I wasn't dreaming. I, a delivery guy, somehow transmigrated into the role of a vicious male supporting character. The original Tyrell and Victoria had a marriage of convenience, with no feelings involved. They had been married for 5 years, with Tyrell constantly bending over backward to please her. Victoria only had eyes for her first love, Luke Austin. Yesterday, Tyrell slapped Luke across the face in a fit of jealousy. To avenge Luke, Victoria had Tyrell hung up and beaten. I remembered how the plot went. Tyrell refused to sign the divorce papers, and in the end, he was brutally torn apart. I needed to survive, so I quickly blurted, "Yes, I'll sign it." Only then did Victoria order her men to release me and toss over the divorce agreement. As I stared at the settlement amount on the papers, my hands shook with excitement. $2 billion plus real estate, stocks and funds. It felt like being reborn as a rich heir. Seeing the grin spreading across my face, Victoria frowned. "Tyrell, are you happy about this?" I quickly snapped out of it, forced myself to think of all the painful moments from my past, and squeezed out a few fake tears. My voice trembled as I asked, "Can't you see I'm just putting on a brave face? Can we not?" Irritated, Victoria cut me off. "No, just sign it already." My hands were so swollen from the beatings that I could barely hold the pen. I used my foot to grip it and hurriedly signed my name. Victoria stared at me in shock. Fearing she'd noticed something was off, I cried even harder. "You forced me into this." But unfortunately, there was a 30-day mandatory waiting period before I could get my hands on the $2 billion. I could hardly believe I could make that much money. But for Victoria, the billionaire CEO, this amount was just pocket change. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, her phone rang. She answered it. "Okay, I'll be there soon." I knew it was Luke calling her. After hanging up, Victoria turned to leave, but suddenly tripped over something. She looked down to find me clinging to her leg, my eyes wide with pleading. "It's our 5th wedding anniversary today. Do you really have to go to him?" Her face twisted in disgust as she kicked me away. Watching her walk off, I sighed in relief. Finally, she was gone. I was about to count the money again when she suddenly came back. She grabbed my collar and yanked me up. "Come with me to the hospital." Confused, I found myself being dragged into a hospital. "Luke's house caught fire. He's been burned. Your skin tone matches his, so we need to take some of your skin for his graft." I stared at her, horrified. No way. But Victoria ignored me and had her men drag me into the operating room. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. My arm throbbed with so much pain that I wanted to curse Victoria out. This cold-hearted bitch would disregard my well-being just to cater to her precious first love. Victoria stood by the bed. "How are you feeling?" I rolled over, ignoring her. The original Tyrell had spent 5 years trying to win her over. Even if he didn't achieve that goal, his exhaustion alone deserved some recognition. Yet in her eyes he was nothing. At that thought, a bitter chill spread through me. I had no interest in pretending anymore. A sharp ding echoed as my phone lit up with a notification. $5 million has been credited to your account. I shot upright like a fish flipping off a dock. Victoria looked at me. "That's your compensation." Honestly, she was heartless, but she never hesitated when it came to money. Since she was paying, I wasn't exactly in the mood to argue about her slicing off a piece of my skin. Not that I was obsessed with money or anything, but the original Tyrell's family had fallen from grace. They went from rich elites to broke overnight. His wallet was more barren than a desert. After transferring the money, Victoria went straight to the next ward to be with Luke. Staring at my account balance, I instantly felt alive again. I decided to use the compensation to discharge myself from the hospital and start enjoying life. As I passed by Luke's ward, I saw Victoria feeding him soup. That display of tenderness and consideration was a side of her Tyrell had never seen. Yeah, of course. Luke was her treasure. Tyrell was just trash. Whatever. We were getting a divorce anyway. Half an hour later, I arrived at the most luxurious club in the city. "Get me 8 pretty ladies. Remember, black stockings only. I have no interest in any other attire." Soon enough, 8 strippers arrived. My mood lifted instantly. They were all stunning. Nothing like Victoria and her frigid, stony expression. I leaned back while they massaged me, rubbed my shoulders, and even put on a strip show. "Sir, let me pour you a drink. Sir, come catch me." I was drowning in comfort, completely losing myself. Thinking back to my old delivery days, I almost cried. I used to swear I'd make $1 million one day and live like a king. I guess my dream had finally come true. But just as the women were stripping themselves, I caught sight of Victoria. Wasn't she supposed to be with Luke at the hospital? Why was she here? If she caught me like this, she might actually break my legs and my manhood. There was nowhere to hide, so I could only watch her walk closer. When our eyes met, her expression darkened like a storm ready to explode. I gave a stiff, awkward smile. What a coincidence. Victoria snapped. Tyrell, are you trying to die? What a double standard. She could cheat on me, but I couldn't even unwind a little, and it wasn't like she even loved me. So why was she tying me up like that? Luckily, I'd seen worse situations. I steadied myself fast. Why do you think I'm here doing this? You should know better than anyone else. I put on my best performance, clutching my chest like I was in pain. It's all because I wanted to make you jealous. Victoria, did you ever love me? Even a little? Meeting my expectant gaze, Victoria replied coldly, no. I suppressed the heartache and pushed away the strippers in my arms. You can stop now. All of you leave. The 8 women were confused but still walked out. Victoria clearly believed every word. She thought I'd done it all just to get her attention. Tyrell, stop wasting your time. I will never love you. Perfect. I didn't want her anyway. At that moment, her secretary approached. Ms. Gibson, Mr. Tanner is waiting for you in the private room. So she was here for business. This workaholic. Victoria glanced at me coldly. Go home. Don't embarrass yourself out here. Fine. For money, a little humiliation wasn't a big deal. As I walked out of the club, I noticed a sharply dressed woman standing nearby. She looked familiar. After a moment, I remembered her. That was Eliza Collins. Eliza was the vicious female supporting character of this novel. Having harbored a one-sided crush on the male lead, Luke, for years, she was obsessed with claiming him for herself. Later on, she even tried to team up with Tyrell to break up Victoria and Luke. Her ending in the book? Predictably miserable. I wasn't looking for trouble, so I pretended I didn't see her. Tyrell. Eliza called out to me. I blinked. Yeah, she asked. Are you and Victoria really getting divorced? I thought you loved her. Loved her? Victoria cheated so boldly, and I wasn't the same pathetic cuckold the original Tyrell was. Of course I love her, I replied. But I loved money more. $2 billion for a divorce? That kind of deal didn't fall into your lap twice. Only an idiot would stay chained to Victoria. I pressed a hand to my chest, putting on a pained expression. But she doesn't love me. I have no choice. I'll let her go. Eliza shot me a long look. After all, everyone knew that Victoria had treated me like trash. Yet I still acted like she was the love of my life. Feeling like I might slip up, I quickly made an excuse and left. Back at the villa, I happily went into the kitchen and prepared a spread for Victoria. The dishes were all biological warfare. One bite could probably shorten her life by a few years. When Victoria came back, I wiped non-existent sweat from my forehead and said softly, "Dinner's ready. I made your favorite scrambled eggs." Since the divorce wasn't final yet, my devoted husband axe still had to hold. Victoria didn't even look at me and went straight upstairs. The butler, Tobias Bradford, tried to comfort me. "Mr. Griffin, don't be upset. Ms. Gibson probably already ate outside." Like I cared. Clear the table. Have the kitchen prepare butter-baked lobster, king crab, truffle and potato gratin, foie gras and caviar pizza. I rattled off 12 dishes without blinking. After some thought I added, "Oh, and a bottle of 82 Lafite." Tobias froze. After all, I had become a completely different person the moment Victoria left. After eating like royalty, I went upstairs and happened to see Victoria stepping out of the bathroom. She must have just stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a bath towel. Her skin was supple and radiant. Her figure softly curved in all the right places. It was no wonder the original Tyrell was so hopelessly devoted to her. She was a true femme fatale. Victoria tightened the towel and looked at me in annoyance. "Tyrell Griffin." I shrugged. Even if she looked good, it didn't matter. Beauty was just another kind of trap. The following days were simple. I spent money every single day, shopping until my hands hurt. If I didn't burn through her money now, I might never get the chance again. When the mandatory waiting period ended, I immediately dragged Victoria to finalize the divorce. Once the divorce certificate was in my hand, and I confirmed the $2 billion had arrived, I turned to Victoria with a grin. "Thanks for the money, ex-wife. Hope you two have a happy life and a house full of kids." Victoria froze. Watching me hum happily like I'd won the lottery, she gritted her teeth. "Tyrell, drop the act. Even if you beg me to remarry you one day, I won't give you the time of day." "Oh please. Even if I had to die, I wasn't giving that money back." I waved her off and left. I was rich now. Time to head back to the club and enjoy myself surrounded by beautiful slippers. But before I even reached the club, something slammed into the back of my head, and darkness swallowed me. When I woke up, I was in an abandoned factory. Next to me was another man tied up like me. He was well-dressed and handsome. I recognized him instantly. That was Luke. The male lead and I had been abducted together. I didn't need to think to know that this was definitely the doing of one of Victoria's enemies. But I didn't remember this scene from the book at all. This system was seriously trying to kill me. I turned to the tattooed man nearby. Hey, you got the wrong guy. I'm innocent. What was the point of abducting me to threaten Victoria? She didn't love me. Besides, we just got divorced. She couldn't care less about me. The tattooed man slapped me hard. Shut up. Annoyed by my noise, he yanked a sock off his foot and shoved it into my mouth. I gagged at once. Suddenly, noise came from outside. The door burst open, and Victoria walked in alone. How much do you want? The tattooed man held up a finger and said, You can only save one of them. The choice is yours. Of course she'd pick Luke. Damn it. Was this the end of me? I'd barely enjoyed my $2 billion. What a scam. Victoria glanced at me, a flicker of hesitation crossing her eyes. I choose Luke. Let him go. I wasn't the least bit surprised. The last shred of hope I'd been holding onto finally withered away. The kidnappers didn't argue. They took the money and released Luke immediately. Victoria helped Luke up. Before leaving, she glanced back at me. I'll come back for you. I really didn't get her. If she actually wanted to save me, why didn't she just bring enough cash to ransom us both? Of all the times to be a cheapskate, she picked this one. After they left, the tattooed man stared at me. This one's in good shape. Probably worth a lot if we sell his organs. I went cold. Great. By the sounds of it, they were planning to strip me for parts and sell me off piece by piece. That was a fate far worse than death. As I panicked, someone suddenly shouted outside, Fire! Get out! The next second, a deafening explosion ripped through the air. The blast sent me flying. The blast knocked the wind out of me, a wall of heat and shockwave throwing me, like a ragdoll against a concrete pillar. My vision swam with sparks and a ringing noise drowned out everything else. Dust and smoke filled my lungs, making me cough violently as I dragged myself out from under a pile of drywall and rusted metal. Cough, damn it. I spat out a mouthful of blood and ash. My head throbbed, but surprisingly, all my limbs were still attached. I looked around. The abandoned factory was a blazing inferno. The explosion had taken out the entire east wall. Not far from me, the tattooed kidnapper who wanted to harvest my organs was pinned under a massive steel beam. He wasn't moving. A pool of dark blood was already expanding beneath him. I struggled to my feet, my mind racing. Victoria had left me. She chose her precious Luke, leaving me to the wolves. If that explosion hadn't happened, I'd probably be lying on a dirty table right now missing a kidney, a liver, and a pair of corneas. Wait a minute. An idea hit me like a second explosion. Victoria thought I was in here. The kidnappers were dead or scattered. The building was collapsing. If I walked out of here alive, I'd still be tied to the melodramatic plot. Eliza, Luke, Victoria, they were all psycho. Luke would probably orchestrate another accident, because my mere existence threatened his ego. Victoria might drag me into more of her toxic drama, but I had $2 billion sitting in a Swiss account. I didn't need to be Tyrell Griffin anymore. I limped over to the dead tattooed guy. We were roughly the same height. Holding my breath against the stench of burning flesh, I stripped off my scorched designer jacket and draped it over his torso. Then with a wince I pulled off the custom platinum wedding band I was still wearing, the one Victoria had tossed at me 5 years ago, and slipped it onto his lifeless, soot-covered finger. Enjoy the marriage, buddy. It's hell, I muttered. I slipped out through the collapsed wall, keeping to the shadows. I didn't go to a hospital. I didn't go to the police. I walked for 3 miles until I found a shady underground clinic in the bad part of town. $500,000 wired silently to the crooked doctor ensured my wounds were treated, my face was stitched up, and no records were kept. 2 days later, I was sitting on a stained motel bed, eating cold delivery pizza, watching the local news. Tragedy struck the Gibson family today. Following a vicious kidnapping, Tyrell Griffin, the ex-husband of Gibson Group CEO Victoria Gibson, was confirmed dead in a factory explosion. Police recovered remains bearing Griffin's wedding ring and clothing. Sources say Ms. Gibson is inconsolable. The screen flashed to a clip of Victoria. She was standing outside the police station dressed in black. Her usually immaculate hair was a mess. She looked pale, her eyes hollow, staring blankly at the charred ring sitting in an evidence bag. Luke was next to her, his arm wrapped around her shoulder, putting on a perfect display of grief. Inconsolable? I snorted, tossing a pizza crust into the trash. She's probably trying to figure out how to get my $2 billion back. Too bad, sweetheart. The money's mine. I picked up my burner phone and dialed a number I'd purchased on the dark web. Yeah, it's me. I need the new passport. Name's Tyler Reed. Put a rush on it. And charter a private jet to Miami. I'm done with this gloomy city. 1 year later. The sun beat down on the deck of the Alimony, my 300-foot super yacht, currently anchored off the coast of Miami. I adjusted my sunglasses, taking a sip of my iced mojito. Mr. Reed, your massage therapist is here. My personal butler, a stoic British man named Higgins, announced. Send her in, Higgins. And tell the chef to prep the wagyu for dinner. A stunning woman in a bikini walked over, her hands coated in expensive oil, and began working the knots out of my shoulders. I sighed in pure bliss. Over the past year, I had fully embraced the life of Tyler Reed. Ide investa. Half my divorce settlement into tech startups and real estate, doubling it. Turns out, having future knowledge from reading a novel makes you the greatest investor on Wall Street. I was now officially worth over $4 billion. No plot armor to fight. No cold CEO wife to please. Just me, my money, and absolute freedom. Meanwhile, my private investigators had been keeping tabs on my old home. The updates were better than any soap opera. After my death, things hadn't gone the way Victoria and Luke planned. You see, the original Tyrell had actually been doing a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes at Gibson Group. He was a simp, sure, but he was a highly competent simp. Without him, Victoria was drowning in paperwork and corporate sabotage. Even worse, the perfect Luke Austin was cracking under pressure. With Tyrell gone, Luke didn't have a scapegoat anymore. He started making terrible business decisions, gambling away Gibson Group funds on risky ventures. And Victoria? According to my PI, she developed severe insomnia. She kept the original Tyrell's room exactly as it was. Sometimes the maids caught her sitting on the floor, holding that charred wedding ring and crying. Classic crematorium trope. I muttered, chuckling. They only love you when you're ash. Did you say something, Mr. Reed? The massage therapist asked softly. Just talking to the ocean, sweetheart. Keep going. My phone buzzed. It was Eliza Collins. Yes, that Eliza Collins. About 6 months ago, she figured out that Luke was using her and Victoria to fund his own secret shell companies. Eliza, being a vicious but highly intelligent female lead, didn't cry about it. She went full scorched earth, severed ties with her family, and ended up in Miami trying to start her own venture capital firm. We bumped into each other at a charity gala. I was wearing a sharp white tuxedo. She was trying to secure funding. She recognized my face immediately and nearly had a heart attack. After I threatened to buy out her life, we came to an understanding. She needed capital. I needed a ruthless proxy to run my companies. While I tanned, we became partners. I answered the phone. What's up, Liz? Tyler. Eliza's sharp voice came through. We have a situation. The Global Tech Innovation Summit is happening in Miami this weekend. We're the lead sponsors. So, rent a bigger yacht. Buy more champagne. Victoria Gibson is coming, she said. I paused, the mojito halfway to my mouth. Victoria? Here? Why? Gibson Group is bleeding cash. Luke lost them a massive government contract. And Victoria is desperately looking for an angel investor to bail them out. Word is she's trying to meet you, the mysterious billionaire Tyler Reed. A wicked smile spread across my face. Oh, the irony was too delicious. Well, I said, leaning back into my lounger. It would be incredibly rude not to welcome my ex-wife to my city. Put her on my VIP list, Eliza. Let's see how desperate the mighty CEO has become. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton was dripping in gold, crystal chandeliers, casting a warm glow over the billionaires, politicians, and supermodels mingling. Below, I stood by the balcony, a glass of 82 Lafite in my hand. I was dressed in a custom Tom Ford suit, my hair slicked back, a far cry from the submissive, beaten-down Tyrell Griffin of the past. Beside me stood Eliza, looking lethal in a backless crimson gown. She just walked in, Eliza murmured, not looking away from her champagne glass. I glanced toward the entrance. Victoria stepped into the ballroom. She looked thinner. The cold, impenetrable aura she used to carry was frayed at the edges. She wore an elegant black dress, but her eyes looked exhausted. Next to her was Luke. He looked arrogant as ever, but there was a greasy, desperate edge to his swagger now. Let the show begin, I whispered. I deliberately walked toward the center of the room, laughing loudly at a joke the mayor of Miami was telling me. The sound of my voice cut through the ambient noise. Across the room, Victoria froze. Her body went entirely rigid. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering onto the marble floor. Luke jumped back, cursing, but Victoria didn't even notice. Her wide, trembling eyes were locked directly onto me. She shoved past a group of tech CEOs, her chest heaving, her heels clicking frantically against the floor. Tyrell, her voice broke a desperate, breathless sound. Tyrell. She reached out, grabbing my forearm. Her grip was like a vice, her nails digging into my suit jacket. Tears immediately welled up in her eyes. You're alive. Oh my God, you're alive. I thought. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then slowly met her gaze. I kept my face completely blank, projecting the aura of a man looking at a crazy person on the subway. Excuse me, ma'am, I said, my voice smooth and utterly devoid of recognition. Do I know you? Victoria recoiled as if I had slapped her. What? Tyrell, it's me. Victoria. Your wife. I let out a low, amused chuckle. I glanced around at the onlookers who were starting to whisper. I gently but firmly peeled her fingers off my arm. I'm flattered, lady, but I think you've had a bit too much to drink. I've never been married. My name is Tyler Reed. No. She shook her head frantically, stepping closer, her eyes scanning my face for any sign of a lie. No, you're Tyrell. I know your face. I know your voice. You didn't die in the fire. Luke jogged up, grabbing Victoria's arm. Victoria, stop making a scene. Tyrell is dead. We buried his ashes. This guy just looks like him. Luke glared at me, though I could see the panic hiding behind his eyes. He knew exactly who I looked like, and it terrified him. Look like who? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Is this some kind of scam? Eliza, do you know these people? Eliza stepped forward, a cool, professional smile on her face. Mr. Reed, this is Victoria Gibson and Luke Austin from Gibson Group. They're here looking for funding. Though given their behavior, I'd say they're severely lacking in professionalism. Victoria stared at Eliza, shock compounding her confusion. Eliza, what are you doing with him? Tell him who he is. Ms. Gibson, you are embarrassing yourself, Eliza said smoothly. This is Tyler Reed, CEO of Apex Capital. He is not your dead ex-husband. Victoria looked at me, her defenses crumbling. The untouchable CEO was trembling in public. Tyrell, please. If you're angry about the kidnapping, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I came back for you. I swear I did. By the time I got back, the building was on fire. Security, I called out, my voice booming slightly. Two massive ex-military bodyguards stepped out of the shadows immediately. This woman is harassing me. Please escort her and her +1 back to their table. If they approach me again, throw them out. Yes, Mr. Reed. As the guards grabbed Luke and gently corralled Victoria away, she kept looking back over her shoulder, tears streaming down her face. Tyrell, I know it's you. I know it. I adjusted my cuffs, took a sip of my wine, and turned back to the mayor. My apologies. You know how it is. Desperate companies will try any psychological trick to get a pitch meeting. The next few days were pure chaos for Gibson Group, and pure entertainment for me. Victoria was obsessed. She hired private investigators to dig into Tyler Reed. She tried to find my birth records, my dental records, anything to prove I was Tyrell Griffin. But with $4 billion, you can buy a watertight past. My paper trail showed I grew up in foster care in Seattle, made my fortune in crypto, and moved to Miami. Meanwhile, Luke was panicking. Having a billionaire who looked exactly like the guy he left to die terrified him. He knew that if I was Tyrell, I had the power to crush him. So the idiot decided to resort to violence. I was sitting in the back of my Maybach, heading home from a club at 2 a.m. when two black SUVs boxed my car in on a deserted stretch of the coastal highway. My driver, an ex-Navy SEAL named Jackson, glanced in the rearview mirror. Boss, we got company. Luke's goons. I asked, suppressing a yawn. Looks like it. Run them off the road. Don't scratch the paint, I just had it detailed. Jackson smirked. Hold on. The Maybach's engine roared. Instead of stopping, Jackson slammed the reinforced steel bumper of my car directly into the side of the lead SUV, sending it spinning violently into the guardrail. The second SUV tried to cut us off, but a trailing escort car full of my security detail slammed into them from behind, sandwiching them. Within 90 seconds, the threat was neutralized. My guards dragged 5 bruised and battered thugs out of the cars. I rolled down the tinted window, staring at the leader who was bleeding from his nose. Who sent you? I asked cheerfully. Screw you, the guy spat. Jackson punched him in the gut. The man folded like a cheap lawn chair. Let's try again, I said, checking my Rolex. I'm very tired. If you say Luke Austin, I'll give you $50,000 and a plane ticket to Mexico. If you say no, I'll have Jackson tie you to the anchor of my yacht. The thug wheezed. Luke. It was Luke Austin. He paid us 100 grand to break your legs and bring you to him. See, capitalism solves everything. I tossed a stack of cash out the window. Take out the trash, Jackson. Let's go home. The next morning, I initiated the financial slaughter. I didn't need to physically fight Luke. I was a billionaire. I called Eliza into my office overlooking the ocean. I want Gibson Group, I said simply. But specifically, I want Luke Austin's shell companies destroyed. Eliza grinned, her eyes flashing with vindictive joy. I've already mapped his debts. He borrowed heavily from underground lenders to cover the losses he made at Gibson Group. If we buy out that debt, we can call it in, I finished. Buy the debt. Call it in immediately. When he defaults, seize his assets, his shares, his bank accounts. I want him on the street by Friday. With pleasure, Tyler. By Thursday afternoon, the financial world was reeling. Apex Capital had launched a hostile takeover of Gibson Group's supply chains. Luke's private companies were utterly bankrupt. Word got out that he had embezzled Gibson Group funds, and the board of directors was furious. At 4 p.m., my secretary buzzed my intercom. Mr. Reed, Victoria Gibson is in the lobby. She's begging to see you. She says she'll wait all night if she has to. I leaned back in my leather chair, spinning a pen between my fingers. Send her up. Let's finish this. When Victoria walked into my penthouse office, she looked like a ghost. Her usual pristine appearance was completely shattered. She wore a simple trench coat, her hair tied back haphazardly, dark circles bruised under her bloodshot eyes. She looked at me, sitting behind a massive mahogany desk, framed by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Miami skyline. Have a seat, Ms. Gibson, I said, gesturing to the chair opposite me. She didn't sit. She walked slowly to the desk and placed a thick file folder on it. I know it's you, she said, her voice hoarse. I know Tyler Reed is a fabricated identity. You paid off the coroner. You paid off the clinic in the South Side. I found the doctor, Tyrell. He confessed. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Impressive detective work. And what are you going to do? Tell the IRS? My taxes are paid. Hearing me finally drop the act, hearing my true voice, the snarky, unapologetic tone I used to use, broke her. Victoria's knees gave out, and she collapsed to the floor, her hands covering her face as agonizing sobs ripped through her chest. You're alive, she cried, a pathetic, broken sound. You're really alive. I stood up, poured myself a glass of bourbon, and walked around the desk, looking down at her. Yeah. No thanks to you. I'm alive. Now get off my carpet. You're ruining the aesthetic. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Tyrell, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. The fire, when I came back and saw the building, engulfed. I died inside. I realized in that moment what I had lost. I realized I loved you. Oh please, I groaned, rolling my eyes. Don't insult my intelligence. Victoria, you didn't love me. You loved the fact that I was your obedient little dog. You loved that I was always there, cooking your meals, taking your beatings, looking at you like you were a goddess. The second your toy broke, you threw a tantrum. No. She grabbed the hem of my trousers. It's not true. I left you with the kidnappers because I thought you were strong enough to survive. Luke was weak. He was panicking. I thought I could get him out and come right back for you. And if they harvested my organs before you got back? What then? I kicked my leg free from her grasp. You know, the old Tyrell might have believed that. Bullshit. He might have forgiven you. But me? I saw the $2 billion on that divorce paper and I saw my ticket out of hell. Victoria sobbed, shaking her head. I know about Luke. I know he set up the fire. I know he embezzled my money. I fired him, Tyrell. The police are arresting him right now for the embezzlement and the attempted assault on you. He's going to prison. It's over. We can start again. I don't care about Gibson Group. I just want you back. I took a sip of my bourbon, savoring the burn. I looked at the woman who had once ordered me hung up and whipped with a leather strap. The woman who let me get sliced open for a skin graft. She was kneeling at my feet, offering me everything. It felt absolutely hollow. Victoria, I said, my voice dropping to a cold, flat register. Do you know what I do on Tuesdays? She blinked up at me through her tears, confused by the question. What? On Tuesdays, I take my yacht out to the Bahamas. I drink champagne that costs more than your first car. I have a dozen beautiful women in black stockings feeding me grapes. I make $1 million trades on my phone while getting a pedicure. I crouch down to her eye level. My life is a literal paradise. Why the hell would I ever go back to being your miserable husband? Her face crumpled. Because we're married. Because you loved me for 5 years. I loved you, I corrected. Past tense. Dead and buried. Tyler Reed doesn't know you. I stood up and pressed the intercom button. Security. Ms. Gibson is leaving. Tyrell, please. Don't do this. Give me one more chance. I'll do anything. I'll be the one to serve you. I'll be the one to beg. 2 guards entered the office. They gripped Victoria by the arms and hauled her to her feet. She fought them, thrashing and screaming my name, her dignity completely abandoned. Goodbye, Victoria, I said, turning my back to her to look out at the ocean. Have a nice life. And hey, thanks for the $2 billion. Best severance package ever. Her anguished screams echoed down the hallway as the elevator doors finally closed, cutting her off completely. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Without my funding, Gibson Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 3 weeks later. Victoria was ousted as CEO by the board of directors. She lost her mansion, her cars, and her status. The last I heard, she moved into a small, rundown apartment on the outskirts of the city, working a mid-level management job. Rumor had it she spent her evenings drinking cheap wine, staring at a fake platinum ring she bought to replace the one buried in the fake grave. Luke Austin's fate was even better. My lawyers made sure the prosecution had absolute, undeniable proof of his embezzlement, his hiring of thugs, and his involvement in the warehouse arson. He was sentenced to 25 years in a federal penitentiary, without the possibility of parole. Plot armor means nothing against a billionaire's legal team. Eliza Collins? She took over the remnants of Gibson Group, absorbed it into Apex Capital, and became one of the most feared female executives in the country. She still sends me expensive cigars on my birthday, completely cured of her obsession with Luke. As for me, the tropical breeze ruffled my hair as I leaned against the railing of the alimony. The crystal clear waters of the Caribbean stretched out endlessly. Before me, the sun was setting, painting the sky in violent streaks of purple, gold, and crimson. Music thumped from the lower deck, where a private party was just getting started. I heard the clinking of glasses and the laughter of beautiful people. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. Notification. Quarterly dividends deposited. Current account balance. $6,450,200,000. I smiled, raising my glass of perfectly chilled champagne to the setting sun. To Tyrell Griffin, I murmured, taking a long, satisfying sip. May he rest in peace, because I'm sure as hell going to live in it. I tossed the burner phone into the ocean, turned around, and walked back to the party. The melodramatic angst novel was officially over. My rich, ridiculous, unapologetic life had just begun.